According to the Marchman rules, we can only keep her a maximum of 5 days. But unlike Baker Acts, once we take them there and put them in the door, if they wave at them and say, "See you later, I'm leaving," they don't hold them. So they can walk out at any moment in time. And that's exactly what Jessiram did after we picked her up on November 4th, pursuant to the Marchman Act. So on November the 10th, Jessiram's mother went back and obtained another Marchman Act order, but this one said to lodge her in the county jail, where she couldn't just get out and leave. Deputies attempted to locate her, being Jessiram, and we could not find her. She was hiding from us, is what we believe to have occurred based upon what I'm about to tell you in just a moment. That was on the 10th. So now we're at the 11th. Jessiram knows, or we believe she knows, that Mom's taken out another Marchman Act order on her for us to pick her up. And about 3:17 in the afternoon, we get our first 911 call where it says a woman is walking in traffic on Rifle Range Road. And if you're familiar with Rifle Range Road, you know it's almost bumper to bumper every day. It's very busy. In fact, we received more than one 911 call. We arrived, we spent approximately 20 minutes looking for this woman that was walking in and out of traffic, creating traffic hazards, and we cleared about 3:29 in the evening, in the afternoon. The witness described at this particular time that this woman seemed agitated and angry. So when we didn't find her, we left. A few minutes later, one of the 911 callers calls back for a second time at about 3:41 and says she's back in the area. Sergeant Speakman, who is monitoring our live 911, arrives in less than a minute and sees Jessiram. Understand, Sergeant Speakman doesn't know that there is a Marchman order out for her because he doesn't know who she is. He's just responding to a woman walking in and out of traffic. So he sees her holding a shovel. She raises the shovel over her head and she slams it into some wood, apparently a stack of wood on the side of the road up. It's not just directly on the side of the road, but kind of up off of the road. Sergeant Speakman begins to approach her and try to calm her down because he can see that she's agitated and angry. And she turns and starts advancing on him. He tries to begin a dialogue with her. She ignores him. She brings the shovel up over her head as she's advancing on him, and he's now telling her to drop the shovel. Drop the shovel. And she's got it in a clubbing fashion over her head. She responds to him, "I'm not afraid of you," as she continues to advance on him. And when he got close enough, he believed the shovel was 4 foot 11 inches long, that she in fact could strike him or stick him with a shovel. And she continued to advance, and after many opportunities to put the shovel down, she didn't. Then he shot. As soon as she went down, he provided first aid for her, and we called, obviously, EMS and fire rescue, and they came. We had 2 independent witnesses that viewed this, and they confirmed. One saw her holding the shovel up. The other heard the sergeant giving her multiple directions and instructions and talking with her to put the shovel down, and she didn't do it. So at the end of the day, That's what occurred. It was that quick. But that's not all of the story. If I can get the page turned here. We are now going back and doing the background, and we find out now that her violent outburst and conduct that day was typical of her personality. When you look at the arrest that she has, she obviously has an explosive temper and a drug problem. She was arrested in 2013 for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. In 2016, she was charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Apparently, at that particular time, her mother slapped her, and she in turn cut her mother with a knife, and this was in Osceola County. In 2017, the next year, she was charged with battery on a law enforcement officer. Also, in 2017, on the same date, she was charged with criminal mischief and resisting with violence. She has a fugitive from justice out for her from Nebraska. She's got failure to appear and possessions of meth and possessions of paraphernalia. She's very, very, very violent. And on that particular day, as she said, she wasn't afraid of the deputy, and she was going to attack him with a shovel. Well, you don't get to attack people with deadly weapons. Finally, she attacked someone with a deadly weapon who protected themselves on this particular occasion. Now, this family is known to those of us in the system. In fact, the Ledger quoted the mother talking about, well, they wouldn't let her in drug rehab because she was pregnant. The reality is there's lots of information about her and this family that we're not allowed to share because it's confidential according to DCF rules. But this family is well known to the system. I don't expect her mother to like it, to approve of it, to agree. But let me make one thing abundantly clear. Attacking a deputy with a deadly weapon is not acceptable, ever. And my deputies have not only a right, but an obligation to protect the community and themselves from deadly attacks, or potentially deadly attacks. And that's what happened on this particular occasion. Sean Speakman is a sergeant with a lot of years of experience, crisis intervention trained. He's got more training than the average deputy, who has an immense amount of training. He was there by himself, and only he could make that determination based upon the amount of danger he perceived at that moment in time. And he followed the law. I don't know what else to tell you. That's the information we have at this particular point.
I have 1,000 questions, but we gotta go. No, I'm gonna lose my job if I'm not in the camera at 4.
I don't want you to lose your job.
6 minutes to go. I'm leaving.
Bye.
I'll be down there, so I gotta
You
go.
want to ask us one of your questions?
Huh?
You want to ask us one of your
Oh,
questions?
what I want to know is why couldn't he back up? Why couldn't he use a taser? And when it comes right down to it, it sounds like he followed the protocol, but it seems to me that the protocol is kind of wrong in this particular case, because the logic is she's 90 pounds. Back off, call backup. Any of those things seem like viable options.
You know, it's really easy for us to sit here in this air-conditioned room and talk about coulda, woulda, shoulda. In fact, there's witnesses that says that the deputy was backing up, and she was continuing to advance on him when he shot her. So for all of those people, with all of those great ideas, where were you?
Well, that decision was his alone, so we're looking at him.
And his decision was right under the circumstances that he had before him at that moment in time, with that violent weapon and her angry, and he could see her body language, and she's attacking him with a deadly weapon. You know, she has a history of doing these things, and she did it that day. and he was by himself, and he was backing up when he shot her, and she was advancing on him. And that's just the way that is. Here's a choice she made. She made the choice. She said, I'm not afraid of you, and she was advancing on him with a shovel. So come on now. You can Monday morning quarterback this to death. None of you were there at that moment in time when that danger presented itself, but he was with a significant amount of training. So next time, we'll take our training and our experience and do everything we can to de-escalate and avoid a situation. But if you continue to charge on toward us with a deadly weapon, that's your decision. We never decide to shoot people. People decide for us to shoot them with their outrageous, violent conduct. These folks just didn't show up this morning. They tried to run over a deputy. This lady was going to beat one with a shovel. That's not the way this works. She had issues, drug abuse issues, and I suggest we don't have the report finished and the talks back, but she was on drugs that particular day. We'd already Marchman acted her once. We're trying to find her again when she was totally out of control. That's her choice and her decision.
Not to be rude, but I gotta go.
Goodbye.
I may be in trouble now.
You have a, where's the mic?
It's on his.
Here it is.
I'll run down there and stand up with you and say,
Well, you have
This
had
is
enough
Grady.
FaceTime, trust me, nationally, so you're done. You go home and do whatever.
I don't get to go home. I got to
with
go
your
to
big
work
new
in a
house,
little
your
while.
Plans.
Sure.
That's next.
I know
I
how-
apologize for
I know how you
running
No
feel.
problem, Ken. I'll see you next time, brother.
Okay, be good.
I know how you feel about the sanctity of people's homes when it comes to body cameras and not passing that threshold. But I just can't help but think that the shovel incident was yet another whereby it would exonerate, would it not, to have something like that? As you watch these other agencies in our area over the last couple of years adopt this, is it just something that you're at least considering at this point for cases just like this?
How many different ways do I have to tell y'all that I'm not going to have body cameras? People have a constitutional right to privacy, okay? A constitutional right to privacy. I am not going to ask the taxpayers to spend $4 million plus a year for us to wear a camera and point at them. They've all got cameras. They can point at us, and it doesn't cost the taxpayer one penny. Not one penny. When we've got homeless people living on the streets that don't have housing, they don't have food, proper food, they don't have medicine. When we have the mentally ill that don't have access to medicine and services they need, I am not going to spend $4 million plus taxpayer dollars a year on this until the priorities that really need to be covered are covered. Everybody with a cell phone's got a camera that they can point at us. I'm not spending $4 million to put a camera on a government agent and point at you and to take your privacy away. I'm not going to put a camera on a government agent, a law enforcement officer, and break down that trust and security. You see, that's the unintended consequence, and I've explained it to y'all until I'm blue in the face. The other reason a small sector of the community wants cameras on us is so that people won't come up and talk to us anymore, so that they won't give us tips. They're not going to trust us with their secrets. They're not going to trust to tell us who's doing the robberies and the murders with us wearing a camera. They're not going to talk to us. That's what they want to happen. They want a divide between us and the community. I can go through a litany of unintended consequences. But I am not going to, one, do away with your privacy rights in your private space. Two, I'm not going to create an environment where our sources and our people who come to us and say, I need help, my son's in trouble, but I don't want it recorded. I'm not going to create an environment where people are no longer going to talk to my officers or my deputies because they're wearing a camera and they're afraid that they'll get outed for trying to help law enforcement. There's lots of reasons for that. Everybody with a cell phone has a camera and they can point it at us. Businesses point their cameras at us. And that's fine. But I'm not spending $4 million of the taxpayers' money while I got homeless people that need services. I've got mentally ill people in this county that need services. They'll get that $4 million first. Take your own pictures of us.
So what do you know that the other agencies that have adopted this now don't?
I know what they're going to learn, and I've watched them. I've watched that. I've watched people not talk to the police anymore, not create the trust in the relationships. I've watched the police officers sue their bosses all over this nation because their bosses can sit in the office and magically turn on their cameras at any time they want to see that, even while they're in the bathroom. Not that their boss would intentionally, but they could have a whoops moment. So what's next? Are we gonna live stream the police officer the whole time he's at work? I'm watching this social experiment and seeing if it stands the test of time. There's no hurry. I've got many other priorities like helping the mentally ill and helping the homeless that certainly deserves any of that tax money we can get when there's cameras all over the place.
So let me touch on that for a second. You mentioned the mentally ill and the programs for that. Other agencies over the last couple of years have incorporated social services, people that go out on scenes like this. I couldn't help but wonder if maybe this might have been one of those circumstances, despite Mr. Sergeant Speakman's training.
No, you got that all wrong. There are co-responder models, right? This county's 2,000 square miles. It's bigger than the state of Rhode Island. Do you have a mental health professional to put in every car, every day, all the time? And see, there's this magic about, oh, we got a mental health professional here. Mental health professionals here won't even follow up Baker Acts by themselves where we've had violence in the past. We have the professionally trained people to deal with people in mental health crisis. And then we hand them over to the mental health folks. And the deal is to give them wraparound services so that we don't deal with them again. This lady got a Marchman Act. And they don't hold her and she walks out. She was taken for services. I suggest to you there's data that I can't talk about. She's had data in services in the past. But the media walks in after the event's over and Monday morning quarterbacks everything. It doesn't work that way in real life. We have very well-trained people. And not once do y'all come in here and say, hey, let's all descend upon the police department or the sheriff's office and congratulate the 999 of them, or the 9,999 of them, that they were able to disarm them successfully. This one we weren't able to. But the overwhelming majority we do. This is one of those events where you don't see the thousands, the hundreds and thousands we successfully get services to. And then you take this one event where she made poor choices because she was on drugs and go, oh my gosh, what did that sheriff's office do? It's what she did. I'm sorry for her family. But she was a train wreck, and her family knew it, and her mama tried to get her help, and she has cut her mama, and there's been all kinds of issues there. I can't help that. This government agency can't help that. Neither can any other government agency when somebody wants to get on drugs and be totally out of control, wander through traffic, attack people with shovels, stab people, shoot people, ram people with cars. Some things just happen in life. They just do. So put that on the evening news. Sometimes bad things happen when people make poor choices. And she made a poor choice several times. And we tried to help her, and she ignored it. It's not a perfect system. But what you don't see here, what we're not talking about, is the hundreds and thousands we do help. And we are still, the media is perpetuating the answer to all of this is mental health people in the patrol cars. Well, if that was the answer, she's interacted with mental health people. It didn't do any good. We are taught de-escalation techniques. We are crisis intervention trained. Every deputy, long before it was cool. And I had a deputy 10 years ago. A guy on the porch, mentally ill, called us. The dad called us. He got up off the porch and charged the deputy. The deputy tried the taser. He knocked the deputy down and was stabbing the deputy in the chest when the deputy shot him in the head, laying on him in his face, stabbing him. You know why the deputy's alive today? Because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. Sometimes bad things happen. If they didn't, they wouldn't need the cops. They call us when they say, look, deputies, police officers, we want you to stand between us and bad people. And we do. And we will. And we always will. But they're not always going to have outcomes that we want. We didn't want to shoot that guy this morning that drove that car directly at our deputy. We didn't want to shoot him. But he's not going to run over us and kill us either. He's just not going to do that. We weren't standing in front of his car. They were all following their training. They were standing to the side, giving that guy a way to drive around them. They were out of the way. He's the one that ran through the ditch and drove directly at the lieutenant. That's what people fail to recognize when you ask these questions. If these people were rational, if they were like us, they wouldn't be doing that craziness to begin with. But most people won't tell y'all that. I will. We don't choose to shoot people. We don't choose to hurt people. We go out every day and help people by the legions. But when you get somebody out of control that refuses to let us help them, that intentionally attacks us, we're going to defend ourselves. And we're not going to be apologetic about that. We're just not.
If a mental health counselor had responded out there instead of the deputy, what?
She would have been beat, stabbed with that shovel.
You did say that, this aside, what has happened has happened. But you said that mental health patients and people with mental illnesses is your first priority, especially when it comes in comparison to body cameras. Do you feel like way before he even got there and she approached him with the shovel, do you feel like the system could have failed her with releasing her from rehab?
I feel like the person that failed her was her. She took the illegal drugs. she's the one that had issues. Her mother tried to help her through the system, but that was her choice to take drugs. It was her choice to hide from the deputies that knew who she was and was trying to take her back into custody and deliver her to the jail on a Marchman order. And the Marchman order that time was taking her to the jail because of a drug or alcohol problem that she walked away from a week before. How's that our problem? How's that a system problem that she doesn't want help? She tells one of the people, one of the witnesses that sees her in the traffic, they want to take me back to jail. I'm not going. I don't want to go. She tells people that. She's resisting all of this stuff. That's the aggravation I get when I watch the evening news going, oh my gosh, the system. Well, the system didn't hold her down and give her those drugs. She was a drug. She was in a, when the tox comes back, it'll show she was in a drug-induced violent rage, and it was not the first time. She's got a long criminal history of it, and on this particular day, it caught up with her.
Since on the calls, the people that called, they did say that she seemed agitated. Do you think that before the deputy even approached her, would it have been better for him not to approach her and get back up first?
We don't have that luxury in 2,000 square miles. Many times, deputies and police officers have to operate by themselves. We try to have backup there every time that we can. But at the end of the day, what if, why we're what-ifing, what if he'd have stood there and called for backup and stood there and watched her walk into traffic and get run over? What would our conversation have been today? Why did you stand there and let her walk into that traffic and get run over? Why would you do that? Well, we were waiting on backup. Well, your job is to protect life, and you stood there and watched her get run over? See, you can Monday morning quarterback everything. And we're always, in every event, we're looking at better ways to do things. Why do you think we have everybody with crisis intervention training? Go look our industry over across the United States and find out how many agencies of any size, especially this size, everybody's crisis intervention trained. Go see it. How many people have a relationship, a mental health relationship? We're beta testing a program right now where we take the mentally ill that we Baker Act, and on the follow-ups, we did follow-ups by ourselves. No rule, no law. We followed up every Baker Act that we did on our own after they got out to say, do you have your medicine? Do you have your appointments? Is there a problem why you can't get your medicine or get to your appointments? We were doing all that when nobody else was or still is doing it. It is patently unfair to challenge an agency that's doing more than almost every agency in this nation because somebody goes off the rails and decides they want to attack a law enforcement officer, when in fact what we're doing is we're saving a lot of people, and we're working hand in glove. There's more than one model. We're working hand in glove with our folks here to make sure that we can change the model. We know there's deficiencies in the mental health system, but when did it become the cops' problem? Because the mental health system and experts were not sufficient. We end up with the baggage and the carnage from it, and we're making the best out of it that we can, and we're going to get better, and we continue to get better, and we always work, and we have for years before it was cool, and now we're working with Polk Vision. But at the end of the day, what's important to understand is, look, people have to take personal responsibility for themselves and their conduct.
So the mom would like to know why she was shot 4 times and not 1 time.
Because mom doesn't understand, and we don't expect her to. That was 4 shots in a rapid succession. Bap, 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 bap. It's that quick. And what we're trying to do is neutralize the threat. It happens in tenths of seconds.
She asked about
And we have communicated with mom. Mom is not happy. We understand that, and there's no problem. But our detectives have communicated with her, and she's exceptionally hostile toward the detectives as they were trying to explain things. But that's something mom's got to deal with. Where are you going?
Live TV. Was
I
that
gotta go for the same reason, just to make sure that we get everything on.
It's good to see you.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Take care.
Thank you.
Be safe, my friend.
So some of the stuff that you talked about, like the 2013 case, is that in her juvenile record that I can't see?
I don't know. I'll have them check it out.
'Cause she's young, isn't she?
She's 24.
Scott's news release listed all the dates and charges, didn't they?
You can see felony charges on juveniles.
Okay.
As of Monday, when I spoke to the mom, she said the sheriff's office had not reached out to her. The last
That's
time they
not
talked to
true.
her
That's
was
just
at the
that's
crime scene.
that's absolutely unequivocally not true.
Do you know how many times your deputy asked her to stop and put down the shovel?
Several times. Several times.
And can we get witness statements?
It's still under investigation, but when it's completed, you can.
Okay.
And that's going to take a while. We don't expect. I understand the family's upset, and I'm sorry for the family that their daughter put them in this position, put herself in this position, and put us in this position. That's on their daughter.
Where are her children now?
Her children were not in her custody at the time of the event. It's my understanding that her children had already been removed from her because of her conduct.
So you did say that, of course, we don't hear about all the successful times you guys have been able to disarm people and then take them into custody. I was wondering if Speakman himself has ever successfully disarmed someone alone.
Absolutely.
So there was, I think, charges last year where she pulled a knife on her boyfriend because he wouldn't marry her.
Well, it's called premarital counseling. Either marry me or I'm going to catch you with this knife. I don't know.
Maybe I should try that. The charges were no billed.
That's not unusual. It's really not unusual when it comes to family. They don't want to prosecute. They have family amnesia. They have victim or suspect amnesia. They don't want to cooperate. There's a difference in doing something, okay, and being able to prove it in court beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. And that confuses people that don't understand the system. Because, well, I wasn't convicted of it. Well, no, you weren't. Because the witnesses were scared, or the witnesses were friends or family, and they calmed down and got over it, and the star witnesses dissipated. State attorney can't prove that in front of a jury. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just means we can't prove it in a criminal court of law.
So it wasn't them being easy on somebody?
Not necessarily. See, and we don't expect people to understand this complicated criminal justice system. Look, when we go to the hospital for a test, we don't understand how the machinery works at the hospital either. We just trust the people are going to use the machinery the right way. And the majority of times, the outcome's good, but not always. Well, that's no exception with this system. We put all these rules and practices and trainings that we've developed over decades and instruction to good use by people who are dealing with human conduct. And it usually works, but occasionally it doesn't. And when somebody's on drugs and out of control and they don't want to go back to jail and we're there, she probably thought we knew. This deputy knew, this sergeant knew there was a marchman out for her, because she said, I'm not scared of you. And she told the witnesses, I'm not going back. But the deputy that's there doesn't know who she is. He just knows somebody's wandering around in traffic. He doesn't even have her name, so then he could have run a check if he had the time to see who she was. He doesn't know who she is.
How's he doing?
He doesn't like that. He's upset. Nobody wakes up and comes to work in this industry and says, oh gosh, I'm going to get to shoot somebody today. It's everybody's prayer that we never have to do that. But when you've got almost, 725,000 people in this county, plus all the tourists, and what I continue to be amazed about while I'm on my soapbox today, California, for example, decriminalizes marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and wonders why drug addictions go up and wonders why crime goes up. We can't have it both ways, folks. We hear the politicians say low-level, nonviolent crimes, low-level, nonviolent drugs. That's just BS. All of it is BS. Capital B, capital S. Drugs were the root of Jessiram's issue.
So I do have a question about the taser. So in the example that you gave years ago, he has used the taser, not speaking in general, but the deputy used the taser and it did fail. In what instance would a taser work? Why do officers carry tasers at all if they don't use them?
Well, they do use them.
In what instance would
Every day. But you use the taser to protect yourself. You use the taser to chase people down. You don't use the taser when someone's coming after you with a deadly weapon and you're by yourself. That's foolish and against all training protocols.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the beginning and put the blame where the blame should be. And that's with Jessiram Hweih. She is responsible with her conduct, with her outrageous, violent conduct, attacking a law enforcement officer. She is responsible for her death.
And I think you had sent me a Baker Act, and this was a couple of,
Scott or Brian.
I don't know, 2 months ago. One of the three of you, sent, or one of the deputies was sent to something, I think in Haines City, and there was a woman standing in the road, having a moment, and her kids were going to be taken away, and your deputy successfully took her for help.
Did she have a weapon? Do you remember if she had a weapon?
We take weapons from people all the time. All the time. This is not, taking a weapon from someone is not unusual.
Even when alone? Without backup?
Even when they're alone. But it depends on the circumstances of the individual event and the violence. Some people hold weapons but don't advance or charge. We disarm people all the time. We operate alone all the time. people watch too much television.
I don't think she was 90 pounds.
No,
115 pounds, 540 to be exact.
Because I've got.
That's what her mom said.
that's what her mom
That's
said.
what her mom said, but I have something from the jail that I think she was 150 pounds, but I need to look. This is Osceola County.
My
She did
experience.
just have a baby earlier this year. She
My-
could be big.
My experience is their weight vacillates depending on how much drugs they're
And
using.
usually if you're doing heavy drugs, you could be pretty small.
So on,
Close to six.
if I can find the date on this, 4/18 of 2019, she was 5'4" and 150 pounds. So
In 2019.
2019.
So the situation is horrible. It's horrible. I don't deny that. It's horrible.
Maybe her mom did say 150.
Who knows? But we didn't drive down the road and say, hey, let's pull over and shoot somebody. We didn't do that. We didn't pick a fight with somebody. We were called because somebody needed help. The community needed help. And she's already told the witnesses, you're trying to take me back, but I'm not going.
Carrie, do you all have statistics? And I think I actually have it in a report where law enforcement responded to various agencies to Baker Act people. I think I had that in.
We have data on Baker Acts. Do you know they're trying in some quadrants to villainize Baker Acts too?
In
Are
what
you-
way?
Don't use them. Oh, you overuse them. The best and only tool we have to help people who don't want help. And Baker Acts are being villainized.
And just to reiterate, you guys know the difference between Marchman and Baker. Marchman is for substance abuse. Okay. 'Cause I don't know if you said that.
So and that's another issue that I'm just amazed by. That at a time when we use these Baker Acts to help people that don't want help, we've got a segment, there's a segment opposing everything now. I mean, I'm certainly can find somebody that opposes breathing air someplace. And all of a sudden, if the media starts giving it some attention, then it's supposed to have some validity with someone, I suppose. But that's what frustrates me about this. We didn't want this Jessiram to attack us. We didn't want her to put us in that position. We didn't want her to put herself in that position. We didn't want her to put her family in that position. But I try to be as sensitive to families as I can. But when they roll out in the media publicly and start saying things, it's like, hey, wait a minute. There's a whole lot more to that story. This family is known to the system.
I'm done. Are you done?
I was just getting warmed up.
Look at my list. I think I have that.
Anything else?
No.
I'm going to go to a Christmas tree lighting tonight with the Salvation Army. That's a lot more passive than this.
Can I get just a picture of you sitting there?
You can get just one picture.
Just one.
I like lots of pictures.
Well, what's your best angle?